Thanks, Sophie. Good evening to you. Coming up on the programme. Imagine the temperature on the tarmac. We meet some of the capital's heatwave heroes, keeping our airports and city moving in some of the hottest conditions.
I say where you're at in heat, you're pushing a lot of trolleys. I look at across the week, see what it is, and if I see the hot weather, I'm like, oh God, not again.
And whilst the third heat wave in the capital isn't expected to break any record, we're told it will last longer. We'll have the details on its impact.
Also ahead tonight, two women with very different experiences of osteoporosis care in the capital. We report on London's postcode lottery. Plus,
you know, I grew up 5 minutes from here. I grew up coming to watch matches on this court.
Londoner Arthur Ferry, who's made history as Britain's first Wimbledon wildcard to reach the quarter-finals. We'll be at his childhood tennis club, where it all began. Meanwhile, looking ahead to the other quarter-final as Londoners gear up to watch the big match on a big screen. Hello and a very warm welcome to the programme, and I don't need to tell you how hot it is out there as we're in our third heat wave this year. While current forecasts suggest it won't hit record-breaking highs, we are being warned this one is going to last longer. So spare a thought for those working outside in some of the hottest conditions. We'll have more on that in a moment. First, over to Alice in Regent's Park this evening. Hi Alice, you've got more on the impact of this heat.
That's right, Riz. I'm in Regent's Park, as you say, which is actually one of the cooler places to be in central London. That's because of the urban heat wave effect. Urban heat island, I should say. That's where the heat is absorbed by all the buildings and the concrete in the centre of town. But of course, here in Regent's Park, with the lovely green trees and the shade, it's almost 8 degrees, sometimes even 10 degrees cooler. So a useful place to head if you're really suffering from the heat. And as you say, we are now already officially in this third heat wave, and comparisons are already being made with the previous two that we've had this summer. We know some facts about the previous two heat waves and how this one's going to compare. So in the June heat wave, daily bus use dropped by around 630 passengers year on year. It was a similar story on the tube. Journeys also down about 600,000 to 3.2 million. And emergency calls to the London Ambulance Service have been at record highs, particularly in that last heatwave in June. Some of the busiest days on record because of the extreme heat across the capital. And that has led to the declaration of a critical incident with pressure on the service and call handlers handling a massive 8,869 emergency calls in a single day. Now, the chief nurse for London has been telling us about the impact of these hot conditions, as Aisha Baksh reports.
The mercury is rising again, and so too is the pressure on our health services. Karen Bonner is chief nurse for London with NHS England.
A lot of the new buildings are being adapted nowadays because we recognise that this climate is changing. People are putting in air conditioning, temporary units, allowing extra breaks, keeping curtains, blinds closed, lots of drinking water.
And both NHS staff and patients are having to take more care in the heat.
We know that the heat does cause or exacerbate underlying conditions, so those people with chronic underlying conditions. We also know that people over the age of 65 are more vulnerable, the homeless and children under the age of 5. So we ask that parents obviously look out and keep those children cool. For adults, look out for your vulnerable neighbours and the homeless.
The London Ambulance Service has also been forced to cope with the extra demand.
We love the hot weather, but it is putting unprecedented pressure on the NHS. So day of last week alone, 999 calls. We received the most in history, over 8,000 calls during one day. So it's unprecedented amount of pressure. The ambulance service have put on additional staffing to try and cope with additional demand, but there are things that the public can also do to help.
And with further high temperatures on the way, the NHS advice is to look after yourself and others to help our health services deal with the extra pressure. Aisha Baksh, BBC London.
Now, it's not just healthcare staff having to work in these hot conditions. We've been catching up with the people keeping our city moving despite the hot temperatures. Well, nearly 4 million passengers pass through London City Airport. So how are staff there coping with the heat? Nicola Ford reports.
Passengers arriving at London City Airport, some heading for a holiday in the sun. But what happens when temperatures heat up at the airport itself? Staff here have to keep their cool. Trevor is the first port of call for many. He directs the taxis and cars outside and sometimes works a 10-hour shift in the sun.
On a hot day, if it's busy, you can tend to start sweating quite a bit, because I say where you're out in heat, you're pushing a lot of trolleys. Sometimes if there's a lot of passengers during the day as well, you're constantly trying to help them out, because you might see them struggle.
At the moment, he's keeping a keen eye on the forecast.
I look across the week, see what it is, and if I see the hot weather, I'm like, oh God, not again.
Once you've checked in your luggage, getting it on and off the plane is a key role for the ramp staff. Working in hot weather makes this job more difficult, especially with heavy suitcases.
We got our manual handling techniques that how to lift, but they can weigh up to 32 kilos. That's the maximum weight that we can carry here.
The Health and Safety Executive recognised extreme heat from tarmac reflection and engine exhaust can create severe health and safety risks. Well, I'm on the runway now. We've got permission to do this in between takeoffs and landings. And with an air temperature of around 30 degrees, that can feel like 50 degrees here on this runway because the tarmac absorbs the heat.
That naturally means, therefore, that concrete defects are more on show. So we do more FOD checks, make sure the aircraft are safe to land and operational at LCY. If it gets too hot, we also have resources available that we can water the runway to make sure that we cool the surface down.
With no maximum legal working temperature, airport bosses have to do all they can to support their staff, whatever the weather.
The heat creates a different kind of problem, and we need to make sure people are at their best. Hydration is really important, but that fatigue that you get in the sun, which is why those extra shifts we're putting on to give people the respite that they need when they're working really hard in what is a tough environment.
If you're heading off to even warmer climes this summer, spare a thought for those making it possible. Nikki Ford, BBC London.
We certainly will. Good to have you with us on BBC London. Still to come this evening.
We're at the tennis club in southwest London, where it all started for Arthur Ferry, who's through to the quarter-finals of Wimbledon after he got into the tournament on a wild card. And we'll be speaking to his childhood coach.
Next, a health condition that weakens bones, making them more likely to break. Having osteoporosis means fractures can even occur after simple everyday movements. Around 380,000 Londoners have the condition, and it disproportionately affects women, with 1 in 2 aged over 50 affected due to the menopause. Well, campaigners are warning of a postcode lottery across the capital, saying access to specialist NHS services depends on where you live. Alpa Patel has been speaking to 2 women whose experiences of osteoporosis could not have been more different.
Meet Frances from Islington and Brenda from Paddington, 2 women who have osteoporosis, but with very different experiences because of where they live. Let's start with Frances. She's 67 and a professional singer, but 3 years ago, her life changed.
I went downstairs, as I often do, to pick up the veg box from the stairs and from the step, and picked it up, and something went snap. It was absolutely excruciating, and it feels worse now thinking about it, knowing that it was completely unnecessary.
Frances had 2 fractures in her spine as a result of osteoporosis, But unfortunately, because of where she lived, she did not have access to specialist support, known as a fracture liaison service or an FLS.
If I hadn't had the treatment at time, if there'd been a fracture liaison service, I'm sure that I would be absolutely fine.
The Royal Osteoporosis Society says 382,000 Londoners are currently living with the condition. That figure is expected to rise to 491,000 in just over a decade's time. In London, there are big gaps in care, with no fracture liaison service in 3 NHS trusts, including Barts, Whittington and Homerton, which serve areas like Islington, Hackney, Waltham Forest, Whitechapel and Orpington.
Well, the government's promise was very clear during the last general election, and that was to make sure that every area in England has a fracture liaison service. At the moment, half of areas do not have that service, so they're being denied the life-saving treatment. 4,000 people have already died since the election following fractures that fracture liaison services could have stopped.
The government says it remains committed to rolling out fracture liaison services by 2030. And that it has invested in 20 new state-of-the-art bone or DEXA scanners which spot osteoporosis. But the Royal Osteoporosis Society says no new FLS services have been created since that promise was made. OK, let's now meet 82-year-old Brenda, seen here having a bone density scan, or DEXA. She fractured her wrist, but because she lives near St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, which has a leading FLS, her treatment was vastly different to Frances's.
I've been really very blessed having this service, but I shouldn't be the only person having this service. All the people, we should be all equal and we should all be treated the same way.
This is a DEXA scan of the patient's, Brenda's hips. And
on hand, looking at Brenda's case, is head of St Mary's FLS, Professor Alex Kominos.
This is the holy grail for healthcare, really. This is a service that improves patient quality of lives, reduces hospital stay and saves the NHS money. So for me, it's a no-brainer.
I can go out walking, I do my shopping, I do the cleaning, I do everything. Because I want to live life to the full. I think that's it, as long as I can and not become a burden to anybody.
Alpa Patel, BBC London.
Now, how much is too much to pay to enjoy live sport? Because one of the UK's major athletics events has been accused of alienating families and younger fans with high prices. BBC Analysis has found London Diamond League tickets for the typically cheaper parts of the track are up to £95, 10 times more than similar meets in other cities around the world. Chris Slegg has the story.
Each year, the Diamond League brings some of the biggest stars to London.
Oblique Savell doing what he often does.
On July the 18th, a near-capacity crowd of 55,000 fans will likely attend once more. But BBC London has heard from athletics enthusiasts who say prices are generally too high, including sprint coach John Powell.
£95 a ticket on the home bend or back straight of a Diamond League event, for me, is exorbitant, and I wouldn't pay it.
Of the 15 Diamond League meetings across the world, our research shows London's ticket prices are by far the most expensive. The back straight and the bends are generally where you get the cheapest tickets. In Rome, they're less than £9. The joint second most expensive meet is the Diamond League final in Brussels, where they cost up to £40. Then way out in front, it's London, where £95 is the price for the vast majority of lower tier adult tickets in these areas.
Well, I think athletics have got to be very careful they don't price themselves out of the market. Whilst I understand the need for economics and finance to run the events, if you're putting people on the home bend or back straight, you're isolating them from an awful lot of the big events for the meeting, and paying nigh on £100 to see that. I think people are going to be a little less than happy, to be honest.
There's clearly no shortage of enthusiasm for athletics at tracks across the capital, like this one here in Battersea. So even if British athletics is getting decent crowds at London Stadium most years, should it be doing more to ensure that fewer of those who love the sport feel priced out? We put our findings to British Athletics, who referred us to event organisers Athletic Ventures. They said,
the London Athletics Meet should be viewed in the context of major UK sporting and entertainment events. A family of 4 can attend for significantly less than many of the UK's biggest sporting events. We remain committed to making the event as accessible as possible while continuing to deliver a world-class experience for athletes and spectators alike.
The cheapest adult tickets at London Stadium are £26 and £5 for children. But among those put off by the overall pricing is 22-year-old Luca.
I saw that they were advertising tickets to be £26, but when you actually look at it, it's more expensive than £26. It's probably closer to £90. When it is a cheap ticket, they're all up in the heavens. If we go as a family, it's going to be over £400 nearly, which is a lot of money. Just to watch 2 hours worth of athletics.
On July the 18th, no doubt thousands will enjoy their day at London Stadium, but perhaps work is needed to ensure the Diamond League can sparkle for all. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Well, staying with sport, fresh from England's extraordinary World Cup win over Mexico, there's the small matter of another big match this weekend. All eyes will be on the quarter-final game against Norway. With many pubs and venues already booked out, some are looking at ways to bring the screenings a little closer to home. Here's Bryony Williams.
Thousands of people across London watched England's epic win against Mexico on Monday morning, and they did so on a big screen. And now the England football team are through to the quarter-finals. It's bringing a boost for a local business that hires out those screens.
So this is a 3 metre by 2 metre. It's one of our most popular sizes. We've got between 3 and 4 metres are really common for nightclubs, pubs, pub gardens, community centres and people's homes.
But you can go bigger and smaller because they're all made up of these?
Yep, they're all modular, so we can stick as many of these together as you'd like, really. And the kind of biggest size that we've been requested so far for these games are 8 by 5, so almost 3 times the size of that, which is massive.
And because we have progressed through the World Cup, there has been an uptick in demand.
Yes, yeah, we've seen as we've gone through the games, more and more people are ringing and emailing. So hopefully we get through to the final, and I can imagine it will be chaos.
It's not just pubs and social clubs that hire out screens. For die-hard England fans, big and small, the Garden is the viewing venue. Paul Humphrey's screen is arriving in the next few days.
So it will fill this slot here. And yeah, the neighbour, thankfully, we have really understanding neighbours who are great with it.
Why do it?
It's just so much fun. We find it a bit better than being at the pub. The kids can come along as well. We put the barbecue on, we make a whole day of it. Everyone chips in, so yeah, it's a good family friends day.
For those who do venture out, World Cup fever has a wider economic impact too.
While consumers are remaining selective about where they spend, where they go, the World Cup is proving to be that powerful footfall driver, and it's creating a boost for the nighttime economy and the local economy as well.
A good financial result for the capital, but we might need some of these skills. Can you kick the ball?
Use your words.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
For a great result for the England team on Saturday. Bryony Williams, BBC London.
OK, let's take a look at the BBC News app. In Surrey, emergency services say this wildfire was started deliberately. It was the size of 5.5 football pitches, while in Berkshire, they're looking at solutions in schools on how to keep cool during another heatwave. And find out why Korean superboy band BTS say they brought good luck to the capital during their tour. For those stories and more, head over to the BBC News app. Well, to Ferry fever now, because Londoner Arthur Ferry is single-handedly keeping British hopes alive at Wimbledon. He's the man of the moment. He made history last night as the first British Wimbledon wildcard to reach the quarter-finals. He went to school in Wimbledon and lives there. A short commute then. Our reporter Thomas is at the tennis club where it all began for the 23-year-old. Thomas.
Indeed, Riz, and I have to tell you, tonight everyone here is buzzing, including the staff and members and, of course, the youngsters who are here for their coaching session tonight, because everyone knows it was on these courts where it all started for one of their own, 23-year-old Arthur Ferry, who is now through to the quarter-finals, ranked 114 in the world, as you mentioned, and he only got through into the tournament on a wild card. So it's understandable that one of the coaches that started working with him when he was just 5 or 6 couldn't be prouder. That's tennis Norchi Key, and thanks for having a chat with us tonight. How proud are you?
Super, super proud. I think a local player, grew up here. Saw some potential in him early on, and for him to reach the quarterfinals of Wimbledon is just unbelievable, incredible.
And at 5 or 6, did you see something special in the lad?
Yeah, I think from an early age I detected a very sort of calm determination, which I don't think you find a lot in players. Always up for a challenge, works hard, great discipline. Lovely guy to be on court with, and all the best for the next couple of rounds.
Absolutely, and very briefly, he's 23. That determination and calmness, how important will that be in centre court tomorrow?
I think it'll be very important, but I think I've seen Arthur come full circle. Actually, I think playing over the state at Stanford has helped him hugely in that regard. But he's, like I say, I think he's had it from an early age. Very determined, works hard.
Well, I know that you're still heavily involved in coaching, so let's talk to some of these young lads who are out on the court tonight. Enrique, first of all, how are you coping and feeling the fact that one of your own, one of the lads here, has made it to Wimbledon?
Well, of course, I think it's an inspiration that he's got this far, and it's really wonderful knowing that he used to play on these courts. He used to play. He went to my school, which is just around the corner, so the whole community really knows him, and we're all really proud of him and how far he's been able to go.
You must be so proud. Graham, very quickly, will you be watching the match or the game tomorrow?
100% I will.
Fantastic.
Hopefully I'll be able to get to Wimbledon tomorrow. I'm going to be sitting in the queue tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
So we'll see.
Well, boys, I'll let you get back to your game again. And, well, this is the next generation down here where it all started for Arthur. But across town in South London, a tennis charity called Young Champs is helping hundreds of other young kids from disadvantaged and low-income families get involved in sport and particularly in tennis. And Wendy Hurrell has been along to a training session there.
Young Champs on the courts at Larkhall Park in Stockwell, southwest London.
There we go.
They are on a mission to make tennis accessible. And to prove the point, they've invited world #1 blind tennis champion Naki Ritzvi.
You have a ball which makes a sound, and that's what I use to hear the ball, because I can't see the ball like you can play.
So when he plays, he has to hear the ball bounce before he takes his shot, and feel through his feet on special lines where he is on the court. He makes it look easy, but it is astonishingly difficult. At the top of his sport, Naki is supportive of what Young Champs is doing.
Coaching can be really expensive, courts can be really expensive, so having the opportunity to train with coaches that are super qualified but are able to offer subsidized rates is amazing, and I hope that more clubs, and all clubs in fact, can open up their doors to disabled people, to young people who come from underprivileged backgrounds, etc., to make tennis more inclusive for everybody.
The Young Champs ACE campaign encourages tennis clubs to pledge 2 affordable hours in their programme or free court space to allow talented players to progress.
We've put a lot of investment in, I'll say we, the LTA, in schools tennis and Barclays free tennis at the weekends, but if you can't progress, it sort of does feed this stereotype that tennis is not for everyone and it's available if you have money. I don't think there are any recognised pathways for a child from a lower income or even working family to get to the higher levels of the game, and that's what Project ACE really wants to try and change.
Sabine picked up a racket 6 years ago. Now, with support from Young Champs and local clubs, she plays at county level. So I asked her, how good do you want to be?
Professionally good, like Serena Williams.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Do you admire her?
A lot. I remember I got to watch her at Queen's, like, the other week. It was so cool. Seeing her for the first time, it was amazing.
Tennis bodies generally agree that to find future Wimbledon stars, there needs to be more opportunity for a wider range of young people. Wendy Hurrell, BBC London.
Great stuff. Now, I think it's still around 30 degrees out there. Let's get a check on the weather with Elizabeth.
Hello there, good evening. Well, heatwave condition criteria have already been met across the capital with more than 3 consecutive days now of temperatures over 28 degrees Celsius. Yesterday's highest temperature across the UK was recorded in Teddington in London at 34 degrees Celsius. And yes, it is set to stay hot and dry as we head through the rest of the week. More strong sunshine and some warmer feeling nights as well. So it is going to be feeling warmer, a bit hotter, a bit more sticky, more uncomfortable for sleeping overnight tonight than it was last night when the dew points, when the humidity levels were really quite low, 17 or 18 degrees Celsius into tomorrow morning. That's at the very coolest point of the night. So a lot more sunshine around throughout the day. Tomorrow, perhaps a bit more high cloud in the way, turning the sunshine a bit hazier, but for most, I think the blue sky is set to continue. Temperatures 32, 33 degrees Celsius, and the wind is going to be lighter, so it won't be quite so refreshing. And it could turn a bit more humid, more moisture in the air by the time we get to Thursday, so it could start to feel a bit more oppressive perhaps. The winds stay very light, the sunshine continues, of course it's dry, and we're looking at temperatures peaking at 34 but possibly even 35 degrees Celsius. Now, if you're lucky enough to be heading to Wimbledon, then it will stay dry for the rest of the championships. No rain delays at all this time. Temperatures dipping slightly by the time we head into Sunday, the high 20s rather than the low 30s. Why is that? Well, because if you take a look at the pressure chart, you can see that we start to draw in more of an easterly wind. And that means that the worst of the heat is going to shunt a little further westward. So temperatures will start to ease a little into the weekend, but we're going to be keeping that strong sunshine. And this time the heat wave could be really long lasting. It's not quite as intense as last time, but there's still a lot of sunshine around, a bit windier by the time we get to the weekend.
OK, that is it from us. So thanks very much for watching. With temperatures over 30 degrees, as we heard there in London this week, the thermal images on our Instagram, including pavements versus shade, say it all. Other stories there too, of course, and on our website. Have a lovely evening, whatever you're doing. Keep cool and take care. Bye-bye.